my senior thesis. So, go ahead. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Common Ground, and my thesis is that I will provide an explanation for the number of immigrants from Latin American countries, specifically Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, and Bolivia, that which immigrate to Spain. So first off, we have to talk about what is cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy is defined by the State Department as the exchange of ideas, information, art, and other aspects of culture among nations and their peoples in order to foster mutual understanding. And some examples of this would be traveling exhibits of paintings, sculptures, photographs, films, academic, youth, and professional exchanges, tours of performing artists, and lectures and workshops by cultural speakers. Okay. Cultural diplomacy is like growing a garden. You first have to prepare the bed or create an idea. Then you have to plant the seed or set the idea in motion. Then you have to water and get support for the idea, and then wait for it to grow so it can produce results. It doesn't just grow overnight. It has to be worked on over a period of time. It's also like a bridge. It's not a one-way street. If one country wants to participate and the other one doesn't, then it doesn't work. It has to be an exchange between two countries or more, depending, and they have to take active roles. This can create trust and alliances between countries, as well as an understanding of other cultures and a cooperation between them. It could even lead to peace on a common ground upon which countries can build relationships. Diplomacy is also relatively cheap compared to other forms of persuasion, such as military force. Diplomacy, this is for a couple of reasons. Culture already exists, so it's something that's easily promotable. Second, because diplomacy has been around since the beginning of time, since there's been more than one nation or group of people. And third, because persuasion is much easier than military force. And cultural diplomacy can also be used as a soft power. One, again, it's persuasion. And two, because the trust and alliances that are created through this common ground can influence each other. And Joseph Nye says, soft power lies in the ability of a nation to entice, attract, and fascinate other countries and societies, so that a nation may obtain the outcomes it wants in world politics because of other countries admiring its values, emulating its example, aspiring to its level of prosperity and openness, and want to follow it. And cultural diplomacy is almost a type of propaganda because you're promoting your country and trying to have a better image. So when did cultural diplomacy start in Spain? Well, it started under the dictatorship of Francisco Franco. He tried to make Spain look better on a global scale because Franco was a dictator and not very well viewed, especially in Spain. He first opened Spain up for the American military bases, and he understood that a country's image is essential to its survival and strength, as well as its projection in the world. He came up with the concepts of the Hispanic world and Hispanic culture, which is what he was trying to do, is promote the Hispanic brand. After Franco, Spain wanted to create a new image because they didn't want to be associated with a dictatorship because Franco was so repressive. So they wanted a better economic projection, new political, social, and cultural structure in Spain. The historic relations. So Spain and Latin America have a very long-standing history. It started in 1492 when Columbus tried to find India and instead found the Americas. So Spain conquered much of Latin and South America and ruled them until the early 1800s. During that time, many people from Spain immigrated to Latin America, and for numerous reasons, including being wealthy and being the ruling party. It wasn't until the early 1820s that a lot of these countries fought for and won their independence from Spain. And at that time, these countries did not have a very good image of Spain because they were under colonial rule. But in the mid-1990s, when the cultural diplomacy started between Spain and Latin America, the relations were actually quite good. And Spain is actually now a bridge between Latin America and the EU, and takes on the task of representing some of the Latin American interests in the EU. So their economic relations. The government of Spain, as well as many Spanish companies, have invested in Latin and South American companies. Spain is one of the largest investors, second only to the United States. The EU as a total, from 1991 to 2001, invested over 161 billion euros, and of that, Spain accounted for 80.4 billion. Over 50% of Spain's foreign direct investment goes to Latin America. The top three sectors that this money goes to are banking and finance, telecommunications, and energy. So first I have a few companies that invested. The BBVA is a Spanish bank that invested in Latin and South American banks in countries such as Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Telefonica is a telecommunications company that also invested in companies in this area, and Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and Peru. Cultural and educational relations. So Spanish is one of the top 5 languages spoken worldwide. There's over 400 million speakers. It's the top 5th producer of books and the top 8th consumer of films. The Spanish State Department, or the Ministerio de Asuntos Exterior y Cooperación, deals with all diplomacy with Spain, and it also says on their webpage that Latin America is one of their focus areas. So the Ibero-American community, which is made up of 22 Latin American countries, Spain, Portugal, and Andorra, it was created under the Ibero-American General Secretariat, or the SEGIB. And so that was founded in 1990 with the 500-year anniversary of the discovery of America, and is the base or foundation for rebuilding the relations between the two. The Ibero-American Summit is part of this SEGIB. It is held every year in a different city within the Hispanic community. It is dedicated to reduce poverty, promote equality of opportunity, and encourage job creation. It has created many cultural centers in Latin America, and the first one was held in 1991 in Guadalajara, Mexico. This summit has created many sub-organizations within the Ibero-American community, such as the Organization of Ibero-American States for Education, Science, and Culture, the Ibero-American Social Security Organization, and the Ibero Youth Organization. So the Ibero-American Conference is part of this summit that meets every year, and they hold meetings, programs, and have many projects. These meetings range from education, culture, health, and advancement of women, and they have programs such as literacy, performing arts, science, technology, and educational television. Within the Ibero-American community, there are several organizations. We have the OIE, starting at the bottom, which is the Organization of Ibero-American States, which has many sub-organizations within it that deal with audio, visual, and cinema, theater and dance, adult and youth orchestra, museums in and for the Hispanic community, and there's also a sub-organization for the development of plans for conservation and preservation. The OISS, over at the bottom right, is the Organization of Ibero-American Social Security, not to be confused with the Social Security Administration in the U.S. It aims to promote economic and social development. The COMJIB is the Conference of Ministers of Justice of Ibero-American countries. It focuses on fighting human rights violations, reforming the civil and criminal justice system, and fighting organized crime. And lastly, at the top, we have the IOJ, which is the Youth Organization of Ibero-America. It includes and integrates the youth and is aimed at improving living conditions for the young. The Carolina Foundation is a private foundation, but it works with the government and other private organizations for funding. It works toward the development, fight against poverty, and a guarantee for a future of peace and freedom. It offers 580 undergraduate scholarships for people in Latin America to study in Spain. It offers 429 graduate, 131 doctoral and postdoctoral, and 20 for Brazilian teachers to teach in Spain. Language relations, we have the Elcano Royal Institute. It is an institute that has created many language and cultural centers within the Hispanic community. It also analyzes and debates international affairs, specifically those relating to the Hispanic community. And the Cervantes Institute, it was opened in 1992 and is specifically for the preservation of the Spanish language, and now has over 60 centers in 38 countries. So immigration. Spain is the #1 receiver of immigrants in Europe. Italy is the second and receives less than half of the number of immigrants that Spain does. In 1958, there was 59.5 thousand immigrants in Spain. In 1998, there was 1.2 million, and in 2008, there was over 6 million. Spain has many laws regarding immigration. Originally, Spain didn't have immigration laws, one, because it was a country of emigration, and 2, because it was a dictatorship. So after the dictatorship, when Spain wanted to enter the EU, they had to crack down on immigration. So they first started by stressing control of immigration, and then they flip-flopped between the stressing and the legalizing by the thousands. In 1991, 1995, 2000, 2001, and 2005, Spain legalized over 1 million immigrants. And after the 2005 legalization, Spain said it would not legalize again. So as with any country, there are a lot of requirements to become a citizen. You have to have a passport, you have to be there legally, etc., etc. For everyone that wants to be a citizen of Spain, you must live legally in Spain for 10 years. But if you are from Latin and South America, Andorra, the Philippines, and Portugal, you may obtain this residence after only living there for 2 years. So this graph, I'm sorry, it's in Spanish. The darker colors represent where the most people come from, and it's no surprise that most people come from Morocco, given the proximity to Spain. But South America is mainly dark red, or red, as well as many other countries in the world. And this is only for the year of 2008. So you may ask, where do people live once they get there? Well, again, the darker colors represent where the most people live. Where the most people live. And again, Malaga is close to the African coast, so that would be a major center, as well as the capital, Madrid. And actually, the province of Alicante, on the far right, has the most immigrants in all of Spain. So now you might say, well, where do all these people come from? Well, we have 13.6 that come from Morocco. We have 11.3 that come from Ecuador. We have 9.8 that come from Romania. We have 6.4 from Colombia, 3.6 from Argentina, 3.4 from Bolivia, 2.3 from Peru, and 1.8 from Brazil. As a total, this represents 36.2% of the immigrant population in Spain. It is over 1.1 million immigrants. So cultural diplomacy causes immigration to Spain. Spain wanted to improve its international image, and it started using cultural diplomacy in the early 1990s. Today, Spain has a very good image in Latin America as well as the rest of the world. They have a shared history, language, religion, and culture. Spain's economy was thriving while Latin America was experiencing problems with dictators, the economy, and conflict. The Spanish government and many Spanish companies have invested in Latin America. Spain also has a very lenient immigration policy and has created or takes a very active role in many international organizations such as the SEGIB, the Ibero-American Community, the Carolina Foundation, and the Cervantes Institute. These institutes were created in the early 1990s. They were given time to grow and to produce results and make a bridge. And in the early 2000s to mid-2000s, there was a serious immigration boom. And the Latin American population in Spain is the highest percentage by far by region. So there is no survey that says why people immigrate. We'll never know for sure that people leave their country because of cultural diplomacy, but it is reasonable to infer that cultural diplomacy plays a big role in the immigration process. But language, religion, and interests are all part of culture, and those things make up cultural diplomacy. Therefore, cultural diplomacy in Latin America has created a flow of people